Folks, thanks. About 50 years ago, I thought I wanted to be a physicist. And to that end, as a 1950s style nerd, plastic pocket protector and all, I read a lot of stuff, including biographies of John Robert Oppenheimer, who struggled with the ethics of building the first nuclear weapons, a decision which he never wound up being comfortable about. Being in college disabused me of the ambition of physics, because you have to be a lot smarter than I've ever been. But 50 years and 2 months ago, I was looking at my first computer. This was in high school in 1969. To be reckless with ethics, I could tell you it was an IBM 1620, which used punch cards. And the downside of that is that if you look it up, you may have bad dreams, especially regarding punch cards. But even at that point, I was thinking kind of, if I'm going to build software and systems, maybe I should think about what I'm doing. And, I went through school and got degrees in computer sciences, and I've been working on that in one way or the other for the last 50 years. And yet, now and then, I'm lucky enough to get a reminder of the consequences of what I might be doing, even when I was doing something like helping a bank build a home banking system, and thinking about what are the ethics of building something and providing customer service. Because in Sunday school, I learned that you should treat people like you want to be treated. About 25 years ago, something called the Electronic Frontier Foundation got started up, and they were a source of reminders, but what they reminded me were the consequences of technology in the spirit of something that happened roughly 49 years ago when I took the course in U.S. history and civics, and where Mr. Shulsky taught us that the press, a trustworthy press, is the immune system of democracy. He also taught us the importance of the Bill of Rights as amended, and that, we have aspirational values, which we sometimes fail to meet, but we keep trying, and we fall, but then we keep trying some more. And so over the years, I've had to consider what are the consequences of what my fellow technology developers are building. And that becomes a bigger and bigger deal, because this week, I read reports that automated processes were trying to spread disinformation about voter fraud in Kentucky. The key there to understanding it is that if anyone is claiming voter fraud, there's a disinformation operation in play, because voter fraud, in the sense that which is discussed, is essentially non-existent. You'd have better luck waiting for a lightning bolt to hit you here. And I get excited whenever there's a thunderstorm, but that's a separate issue. By the way, if I seem a little dazed, I just flew here from New York, and boy, are my arms tired. I don't know about you, but considering the news that we read like that, that I need all the comedy I can find in my life, where I've grown needful of that. But if you're here, you know that technology is a two-edged sword. It can help us, it can entertain us, which has high value sometimes, or it can hurt us. I love watching TV. I do not love TV watching me. And so right now, we're in the situation where technology is being used both ways, and we need to remind technology developers of the notion that this is a two-edged sword, and We can't, these days, we can't disregard the consequences of our actions. The idea is sometimes you put technology in the hands of the wrong people and they'll use it against us. Um, we have foreign adversaries and their domestic allies who are using disinformation campaigns to hurt us. They're using it to divide us, and there's a pretty big downside when you start thinking about that. Yesterday's Washington Post has an important piece by someone named Renee DiResta, where she addresses the way that foreign intelligence services has used a technique called narrative laundering, a term that I had forgotten, but I'm going to start using again. Renee is someone who's doing great work at Stanford and elsewhere. And if you happen to bump into Renee anytime soon, please thank her for the article, which I'm hoping everyone has read for tomorrow. And I've just realized that I've given you a homework assignment. So the work that's being done in just gathering the kind of data involving what's going on in our culture and what are the consequences of that, that's a really big deal. It's a really big deal in a lot of ways because a euphemism for data in other fields is called evidence. And a lot of the people here are involved in efforts where you dig up evidence. The evidence will not be popular among people who don't want it heard. For example, if you're bringing up, corruption of one sort or another, not that I have that on my mind recently, or you may, by bringing up evidence, contradict people who are trying to run scams using a different narrative, or for that matter, the evidence that you dig up may just be unpopular among people who are telling a different narrative. They're well-intentioned, but the anecdotes they read have convinced them of one reality, and if you're bringing up an actual reality based on data or evidence, you're not going to be popular, and you may wind up yourselves the subject of a disinformation campaign, or maybe as phrased, just an old-fashioned dirty tricks effort. It is no fun to be hit by that, as we've seen in recent testimony, and which Renee can describe in much greater depth than I can. For that matter, for reasons which I won't disclose in open session, yesterday a movie called The Report premiered, documenting the genuine heroics of Daniel Jones working for the Senate, exposing the actual efficacy of torture in counterterrorism. Ask Renee about Daniel. So the deal is that right now I'm spending most of my time dealing with a lot of these issues. The conflation of election integrity, cybersecurity, journalism ethics, and related matters, because right now the country is under attack. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort. I'd like to think that everyone here is part of that effort to push back against those who wish us harm. It'll be tough at times because if you go too far and if you're not prepared for dirty tricks, you may find yourself an easy target. But it's time for us all to work together and to do what you can. Dig up the truth in the data you look at, consider the ramifications of what you're doing, and more personally speaking, remind my peers who do technology development that our actions do have consequences, and no matter how well-intentioned we are, we're not trained to think about them, not normally, that's changing, but we do need a reminder now and then. Get it right, and when you go public, be prepared. I can go on at length about this, and I'm tempted to, but I've used my favorite joke, so it's time. Thanks.